Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 212. And we have a returning guest today, which we will get to in a minute. You are on my channel, so you probably know who I am, I guess, unless you're just kind of cruising around the internet and you stumbled upon this, then welcome. This is the Artcasters, where we talk about basically, we talk a lot about comics, which we'll talk about today, but just art in general and, kind of how to make a living in art and how to, just topics around art and illustration and all that good stuff. So, like I said, this is gonna be a comics heavy episode. And since one of the things we do in the beginning of the show is kind of promote things we have going on, and because this is a comic centric episode, and I've got a new series coming out on Monday. And actually, I will have sort of a quick tip video tomorrow that I'm going to release. But the first official episode will go live on Monday for Making Comics 101, which is a new series that I'm going to take you basically step by step, all the way from coming up with an idea to a comic, all the way to the finished product and publishing it and all that kind of stuff and everything in between. And this is something I've been working on for a while. So it'll be on my YouTube channel. You're on my YouTube channel, so I know it'll be on this channel. So anyway, super excited. And yeah, I need to put some stuff on my website, by the way. So, but you can also find me at circworks.com. And also we've, as you noticed, or probably maybe you noticed or maybe you didn't, Josh he's not here. I think he's out doing some political canvassing, so he kind of abandoned us. But luckily, Corey, who's been under the weather, is feeling better and he's filling in. So okay, he already got ahead of me on the.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was going to anticipate where you're going.
The way this thing works, Corey and I both have control. So sometimes we'll go to hit the button to promote somebody's website, and then somebody will turn it and the other person turns it off because we're too quick on the draw. But anyway, so how's it going, Corey? You're feeling better?
Good. Yeah, not 100%, but much better than I was. So.
All right. Do you have anything to promote or?
No, just what I'm doing on Instagram. My animated short's still making the rounds. If I don't know, I should probably post when and where people can see that, just in case. Yeah. But yeah, it's I think it's already played in London, Slovakia, Rome, New York. I think it's going to play in DC in January. Anyway, so yeah, I'll get on that. But yeah, no, I don't have anything in particular.
So how long is it till you can officially let everyone know that's not going to one of these places where I guess it's premiering or something, or it's part of it?
As soon as everybody is done judging it, which I believe is in about June, I can release it unless there's some kind of distribution deal or something, which is unlikely. But if there's something like that, then that'll put it outside my control. I don't know. Maybe it'll end up on Netflix or something, and everybody can see it.
You'll do like the Spike and Mike's type thing, where they package shorts up and everything, and anything like that, or
I'm so new to this. I'm not sure, but I know that a lot of the festivals do talk about distribution deals and stuff. I'm not sure how that works with animated shorts. So.
Yeah. There was did you see that? I forgot the name of that. There was I think it was a Netflix series, and I forgot what it was. Like Love, Death, and Robots or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, and that was kind of like a Animatrix type of deal. Yeah. I haven't seen too many of those around, but it seems like that's something that could start as everybody's competing with everybody else with streaming services. So
pretty cool.
So Netflix or Amazon or Disney Plus or anybody? Not that Disney Plus would pick mine up.
Yeah, they're hurting for animation over there, I hear.
Yeah, especially the type that I do. So.
Yeah. All right. So we've kept our guests waiting long enough. So Russ Leach is back, and so welcome back, Russ. You are the comic book black belt, as you can see here, and that's where you can find him online at Comic Book Black Belt. And also there will be a link to his YouTube channel, which since you're on YouTube, everyone on here, you're on YouTube, so you're you know what that's all about. So definitely check out Russ's channel because he's got some great stuff. I just watched his year in review, not year in review, kind of like your review of your basically your whole comic book journey for the last 10 years, and you were talking about how you kind of, it's never too late to start, which is always good for me because I'm not too much younger than you. So, and there seems like a lot of things I'm still starting at, you know, but that's good. You know, it's one of those. It is one of those fields where you can. I mean, it doesn't really matter how old you are. I mean, you tend to only get better if you're doing it right. I think the older you get. So, as long as hopefully what I'm got right now, my arm isn't some kind of arthritis. As long as that still works, then we're golden. So, anyway, Russ, anything you got going on right now that you want to promote other than YouTube channels and your website and anything like that?
Well, you can go to my teaser site for Only Death Can Save Us. That's the book I'm working on at the moment. So that's onlydeathcansavus.com. And you can get that via comicbookblackbelt.com, russleach.com. And if anyone wants to sign up for the email list, that would be great because I can keep people updated on that. That's the project. That's my project at the moment. That's the one that I'm hoping to have out by the end of the year. But other stuff that I'm doing is kind of like, you know what it's like. It's client stuff. So not of interest to other people, really. Yeah,
and I was on your website, and it didn't seem like there was a link to the Instagram. But you're on Instagram. I mean, I've seen a lot of you post a lot of stuff on Instagram, and you definitely check out. I mean, if you're just a fan of comics, especially the sort of that Bronze Age style of comics, definitely check out Russ's stuff because he's. I mean, and he has worked for like Marvel and stuff, but he's definitely right up there with the kind of even like whatever when he's working on like a lot of the characters you'll see him post from kind of like the Marvel and DC characters and a lot. Well, do you post? Is it mostly Marvel or?
It's mostly Marvel because that's the stuff that I've worked on. I've done a few bits and pieces, but no, I haven't done a lot of DC. So
is that all stuff from the what was it called?
It was Draw the Marvel Way. Draw the Marvel Way, and it's I suppose it's an homage or a follow up to How to Draw the Marvel Way book. Certainly, it's a play on the title. And that ran for 5 years in the UK.
That's why I'm not. I mentioned this before.
Yeah, it's UK and Europe, but I'm anonymous everywhere else. In fact, I'm pretty much anonymous here.
But yeah, so is all those Marvel characters you're posting, is that from that series? Because it seems like I'm like, I mean, I follow you on Instagram, and it seems like in a day your post. It's like I don't know how often you usually post, but it seems like there's always drawings being posted that you did, and they're all like, I mean, banger drawings. I mean, they're all like super like.
Thank you.
Doing this like posting. Is he drawing like 10 of these a day and posting them? It's crazy.
No. What I'm trying to do is as you do with social media, I'm trying to keep a presence.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I'm also trying to show off the stuff that I've done, especially for people who haven't seen the book. So I can't just show the book because obviously they want you to buy the book. They may at some point do a combined sort of a trade version of it where they make a book of not all of the lessons but a lot of it. Mike Collins, who worked for Marvel and DC, he's worked for everybody actually. He does a lot of the Doctor Who strips in the main Doctor Who magazine. He was doing the first study or the first lesson in the first tutorial in the book, and then I'd do the second tutorial and the tips page. So he's shown some stuff, but obviously his career spans 25 years or something actually in the comics industry, whereas I've only been in and around comic publishing per se for the last 10 years because that's where I've been knocking on the door. So I need to get more people to understand who I am, not from a vain perspective, just simply from getting your profile out there so that you can contact people, potential consumers, as it were, but readers, people who like your work. So Yeah, so that's the idea. Is I try and post some of those, not all of them, but as many as I can, and obviously not in context. I don't show the tutorial. I kind of show the end product, and there's some great colors from I'm trying to remember his name now, James Afredi. That's it, and he is actually in comics, as far as I'm aware, in mainstream publishing. And he does some fantastic, or he did some fantastic colours on it. So I like to show that. The old Doctor Who run, obviously. The other problem you have is that, or that I have, is that so much of my work is anonymous work. So I'm doing storyboards at the moment. I'm involved heavily in a project which is, not to say too much, which is based in comic strip storytelling. And it's taking already published stories and repurposing them with you as the reader via a device as part of the story. So I'm kind of being an art director, consultant, and illustrator, and repurposing those stories for the project. So that's taking up a lot of my time at the moment, and we'll see where that project goes. And at the same time, I've got to throw myself wherever I've got spare time at the pencil pages for my own book.
Yeah, and if you've turned away from your screen, you're doing something else while you're listening to this, just turn your attention to the screen, because we've got Russ's artwork kind of scrolling through. Just quick question, because it's been a while since I've done storyboards. Do they still pay really well compared to comics?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny. I keep telling people this, and it's like, it's the stuff that's comics related, or storyboard, yes and no, but it sounds like this one definitely is. But the thing, and I would imagine probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way is probably the same thing, but it's like the ancillary stuff that uses the Marvel characters and all the other characters, whether it's licensing or whatever. That's the stuff that pays pretty well. It's like the comics, not so much, but everyone wants to do the comics. And it's like, I say the same thing with like I did I've done like PSA comics and things like that to distribute it in school. And my page rate on those was more than what Marvel, Marvel art were getting paid. So it's not as glamorous, but there is some if you're trying to make a living doing comics, especially to kind of fund your own stuff. I mean, we'll get into Only Death Can Save Us, and same with me. I'm not making money. I'm not making a lot of money off of Young and the Dead, but my other stuff kind of allows me to do that. So, but yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing. But like everyone, the one thing I will say that, and you kind of alluded to this as well, is that if you are a Marvel artist or somebody that's on a Marvel or DC title, where maybe the page rates are, they're probably better than other companies, but they're still not great. But I think I noticed, like, people who are Marvel artists, if they go to conventions, or if they've got a YouTube channel or something, usually that just really helps with their presence. I mean, people people obviously, maybe for reasons like they want to break into the industry, but everyone wants to connect with people who actually do work for, people who work for the big two or whatever. So it seems like if you're in that kind of camp, there's a lot of fringe benefits that come with that. And that's kind of where money is, I think, and maybe sale of original art and all that stuff. So it's kind of like, I would, it's funny because, tell me if you guys know the answer to this question. So when a lot of times now in like schools, they'll distribute, or they'll put out these handouts like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's got like, firefighter and astronaut and, doctors and nurses and all that kind of stuff. And then you can fill in whatever you want. What do you guys say is the number one thing people fill in? And that definitely outranks, like, it definitely outranks firefighters and all that other stuff. Do you guys know?
I can guess.
Yeah, guess.
YouTuber.
You are absolutely 100% correct. So, but that's the thing with YouTube. Like, so I kind of liken that. I kind of liken YouTube, this idea of the YouTuber to the idea of like a Marvel or DC artist. Whereas at the very top, you've got people, you know, the big names are making a killing. Everyone else, not so much. But there is something attached to that, that being a Marvel or DC artist, where there's other ways you can take advantage of that notoriety. Same thing with YouTube. A lot of people, you know, when somebody who's not like a huge million plus subscriber YouTube channel, you know, even people who are in hundreds of thousands, when a lot of times when people hear what they're actually making from their AdSense, a lot of these, especially young people who look up to these YouTubers, they're really surprised that they're not making a whole lot of money. But if you have that presence, there's a lot of other ways to make money. And I'm just above, you know, a little bit above the 10,000 mark, but you know, it's still good promotion, and it's still other thing. And if you are, you know, if you're somewhere in the, you know, 50,000, you know, YouTube subscribers or whatever, you most likely probably aren't making enough to live off of, maybe. But there's other, if you're just not relying on that AdSense, there's other ways you can use that to your benefit. So I just find there's sort of a parallel there. Would you agree? I mean, yeah.
Short answer. No, I do, and it's always been that way, isn't it? There's always been an upper echelon of artists over at the big two. I think it's leveling out now, simply sadly, because of the amount of sales that aren't being made by top tier comics anymore. You know, it used to be the case that if you were on a comic that sold 100,000, not only were you getting a page rate, you were getting a kickback from the sales figures as well. And people made a lot of money. The top artists made a lot of money. I don't think that's really happening that much anymore. You know, the golden ticket is to get an exclusive with one of these companies, so that even if you're not making the kickback on the numbers, you've got guaranteed work for a period of time, and it also guarantees your notoriety as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing anymore.
I think there's a few. Yeah. There's a few people that get it, but these really are golden tickets now.
If somebody really wants somebody that, like, I would imagine somebody like Robert Kirkman, whoever he's got working on his titles, I'm sure he's got them locked down, and no one's going to be able to pay more than he's afford to pay. You know? Yeah,
if you're making money out of these people, then you're going to lock them down in some way. Yeah. But other than that, I think it's pretty much. I think what I like about the comics industry at the moment, there's a lot of things to knock in the comics industry. Yeah. One of the worst things is that, I've said this before, is that they took away comics from the 7-Eleven. You know, they put them into comic shops. I love comic shops. I absolutely love them. But in order to retain a huge audience base, you need to put them under the noses of lots of people. And comic shops don't do that. They do it to the fan, as it were. And it's like I say, I love comic shops, never knock them. But you need comics everywhere in order to make that work. So that's the first thing they did wrong. But outside of knocking the industry, I feel now that the industry has opened up. I think it's the Wild West again. And you know, with YouTube and with the internet being more mature than it was, say, just 10 years ago, which is a pretty obvious statement, but you know what I mean. Yeah. You know, it is the Wild West now, and you can go out there and get it. There's business to be had, and there are readerships to be gained. And
crowdfunding is a big thing. People are making. People are earning a lot more crowdfunding, and we'll get in kind of your mindset with the book you're working on, and whether you go self-publishing or you look for a publisher and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's people making way more than, you know, Marvel, DC could afford to pay with their. But again, you have to build an audience, and I think that's what all three of us are trying to do. You know, and there's, again, to the different routes. There's, you know, when I think you mentioned this in your video, or I heard somebody mention it, whether it was on Marshall's channel or it was on one of your videos, but when one door opens, that door closes. So it's like, how did you break in? you could tell somebody how you broke in, but that doesn't mean also the idea of breaking in, it doesn't mean once you break in that you're in. You got to stay in.
No, it doesn't. No.
So
no, from my perspective, as you mentioned in the video that I made, I said that, I did cartwheels around the office when I got the Doctor Who gig.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, I'm working on Doctor Who, and then that worked out that I worked on Draw the Marvel Way. It also worked out that I worked on Ben 10 for over a year. Yeah. And these are great. These are massive brands, and then zip, nothing.
Yeah. And you never know what can happen. Like we've had one of our frequent guests, Vincent DePorter, who's worked. He's done stuff. He's done Scooby-Doo. He was huge on SpongeBob comics, and of course, when Stephen Hillenburg passed away, that was the end of that because he was keeping that comic going by himself, not even attached to Nickelodeon. I think he kind of maintained either the rights for the comic or just the publishing or something. And so when that went away, and I would imagine it would have to come back because there can't. I mean, you look at all the IDW titles and all this stuff, and I mean, there's not a property out there that doesn't have a comic book attached to it. So I have to imagine SpongeBob will come back, and hopefully, when they do, they'll get him back on board. But yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, you even somebody who's worked on these big titles, you've gotta. And I mean, I remember when I was at one point, this was back in the 90s, when everything was blowing up. But even then, I remember trying to break in, the traditional way, going and having your portfolio reviewed. But here I am, this kid, 18, 19, with a portfolio that I thought was, the bomb, and it was not.
Yeah, that's always the way, isn't it? Maturity brings
you get these big dreams, but I'm standing there next to professionals that are in that same line who aren't just showing their pencils, they're showing comic books that they've made published by Marvel to other Marvel editors trying to get work. And I assume that's even more prevalent now. I mean, it's just because so
it's always about the hustle. And unfortunately that for me, I don't live in New York. I know that's not everybody lives in New York, but there was a certain amount of, you could go and bug people, you could go and bug the editors, and probably nowadays you'd be arrested anyway. But it's harassment. But that was there was that sort of interaction, and it doesn't happen like that anymore. The only way to hustle is to get out there like we're doing, be out there, using the internet as your shop window, because that's pretty much where everybody goes to buy. When I talk about that, I mean like client association, as it people are looking for you. If they're looking for you, they're looking for you on the internet. I've never been to. I've never been in one of those lines like you did.
Right.
I just because of the way that my career and my life has gone, I just never ended up in one of those lines. I have had portfolio reviews. I would say probably the most memorable was Charlie Adlard, and he was extremely nice. And again, that was because he knew the guy that I know, Tim Quinn, who used to work with Marvel, and he just said, Charlie, have a look. And I ended up spending quite a lot of time with Charlie. He's a lovely guy. And that was just before I got into Doctor Who. And he gave me some great tips.
Awesome.
And it really worked. Jimmy Palmiotti as well was very pleasant online to me, and was very useful. I mean, he really gave me some great tips. So portfolio reviews are really good. And actually the Jimmy Palmiotti one was very recently by comparison. So as you say, you're always constantly, looking to improve, looking to other people, your peers, to give you criticism and make the work better, and constantly on the hustle to get more work. And it doesn't just turn up. It's like, oh, okay, I've got that gig. I would imagine there's people that have done, mini series for Marvel and thought, right, that's it, I'm off. I'll never be without work, and then never got another gig. And there's probably nothing to do with the fact that they're good or bad. It just didn't happen, and it doesn't happen like that. You've constantly got to be on the prowl to try and get more work, and don't be picky. That would be my suggestion.
And like I can pretty much say that, you know, I just kind of, I don't really have like a desire to work for the big two, but in saying that also, that I know that the possibility of my work being something they'd be interested in is like almost nothing, unless for some reason, you know, every once in a while there's something that kind of breaks through, like a Ed Piskor, where he works on, you know, like X-Men, when his stuff, because he's just got such a what's the word I'm thinking of, just a I don't know, reputation or whatever around him, that he, even though he's not doing that kind of style, he's got a name where they're willing to bring him on and do something like that, you know. But you know, but Russ's stuff does definitely fit in that. And for somebody that, I mean, Russ is able to make a living doing comics, but I would assume you would say that you're not at the point where you would like to work on like a main title or something like that or whatever. Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, if they're out there listening,
yeah. So, I mean, and that can be really discouraging to somebody who's not at Russ's level, to know that he's not even with his skill and the fact that his stuff would easily fit right in with any Marvel title. It's, you know, it's kind of, yeah.
It's, you know, it is a combination of luck and hustle. And I think the luck thing, I mean, I consider myself very fortunate to have bumped into the people I have done. I mention it in the video. If anybody, well done, by the way, for listening to me drivel on for 40 minutes. I got that original Doctor Who gig because I'd worked with Jason on for want of a better phrase, a lower tier book. And we'd struck up a relationship so that when he got the gig as the editor, the first person he thought of calling was me.
Yeah.
So, you know, you never know where your relationships are going to go. That's why it's so important to be professional. You know, don't slam the door on the way out of anything you do.
Right.
You know, just stay professional, stay polite, stay up there, stay fresh and hungry. And the gigs will come. And yes, obviously the pinnacle is to work for one of the big two. That would be a dream come true, you know, to be able to work on a Captain America or something, or Avengers or something like that would be brilliant. But you know, any of them. But I've managed to do some of it, so that's placated, like being able to draw the characters, you know, officially has placated a lot of that sensation. And of course, the ground has moved under my feet. Things aren't the same as they were. And so you start realizing that it's not always about working for someone like Marvel or DC. Sometimes it's just about getting your story out to the, you know, potential readers, consumers of your work. That's what's really important. It's just that doing it with really well-known characters is, you know, obviously idolized characters, and having such a massive audience ready-made for you with a big publisher is obviously a big step forward. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's lots of other routes to get to where you really want to be, and that's why having your own intellectual property became, you know, over the last 10 years, I've realized just how important that is to you as a creator, to actually have control over what you're doing, so that you can actually access the people that you want to communicate to.
What in particular kind of taught you that lesson? I mean, I'm sure it's a number of things, but
yeah, looking at the landscape mostly.
Yeah.
Just seeing how everything has changed. I'm very much a nuts and bolts character. I'm probably not very arty, to be honest with you. I've come from a background of production. I was in art direction. I also did online development. So I've been very much, you know, brief concept delivery. That's the way I've worked my whole life. So I've not been in that kind of artistic publishing sphere. I've been in publishing, but not in the comic strip publishing. And that gave me a certain approach to the way that I work. And so when I came to, you know, trying it for myself, it was very much right. I'm going to go and get pages. I'm going to get a page rate. they've got the story, they give me the pages, I do the pencils, I give them back, that's the end of it. So it was very sort of transactional in that way. And I realized as I started to work and realized how naive I'd been as well, that wasn't necessarily the way to gain access to an audience. And I also realized that that's really what telling stories, what comic book publishing or content creation is about. It's about getting to an audience. It's not just doing it for the sake of it. And for a while there, I was, in my mind, because I loved the idea of being in the bullpen when I was a kid, that was what was important to me. But I realized over a period of time, after seeing the way the industry was moving as well as realizing my own naivety, even at the age of 42, that things weren't quite that way, and there were other ways to get your work out and to connect with people via the stories. And at the end of the day, we're all storytellers. That's why we animate, draw, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as far as different way, I mean, I think what I'm trying to do right now is even with the courses and what you do the same thing on YouTube and everything like that. It's just a different way to build, and I kind of came right out on front in my introduction video to Making Comics 101 was that who are you? No one really asked me this question, but you wonder if people are curious, like, who are you and what gives you the right to teach how to do comics if you haven't worked for Marvel or DC? So, but I put that out on Front Street and just said, I've been a professional illustrator and designer. I've worked in comics, and there's other, just because you're not working for the big publishers doesn't mean you don't create comics professionally. And I've done a lot of comics professionally. So, but that's a different route you can take. There's got to be all kinds of different. I think you just have to be a little, I don't know, clever or like we were talking about. There's a billion ways to break into that comics industry, and they're all different, and most of them don't work the same way twice. So
definitely, I smirked then, because what you just said, it just because you don't work for the big two doesn't mean you don't do it professionally.
Right.
Can also be flipped round. Just because you work for the big two doesn't mean you do it professionally, which is a completely different meaning.
Right.
but you're absolutely right. It just that badge doesn't mean that you absolutely know what you're doing. It just means you've been fortunate enough to break down one of those doors and get to the big two. It doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't make you better than other people that have never been to the big two. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're showing your ability and your technique, and you're offering that out to other people, and I think that's a great thing. So
and I don't know everything about making comics, and maybe there's a ton of people that could do a better course than me, but they haven't. So I'm going to step up and do it. But enough about me. I want to talk about. We've talked about some of your more high profile stuff, the Doctor Who, the Ben 10 characters we all know and love, and the stuff you've done for Marvel with How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way and all that. But you're working on it, kind of in tandem with some storyboard projects or whatever other professional stuff you got to pay the bills. And you kind of alluded to developing your own intellectual property, and the one you're working on I think it's brilliant. If only by the title alone, and when you hear that, and then when you see what it is, it's like, oh, this is a great concept. And I'm really big on just clever concept. I mean, that always gets me even more than sometimes the actual comic. But when somebody's got a great idea, and I think yours is a great idea, and I like these little, these sort of like hidden meanings, like only death can save us. I mean, it's a really cool phrase. And then, but it ties into what it's all about. And like with my comic, Young and the Dead, it has this, and not a lot of people know this, but it has sort of this double meaning. Young and the Dead, they're young kids, and it's the kind of the Living Dead type thing. But it's also, the main characters, that's their last name is Young. So there's a little double meanings, but I like all that kind of little thing. So, so why don't you just give us kind of either the basic pitch or the idea behind Only Death Can Save Us.
I have an elevator pitch.
Awesome. Awesome. That's what I encourage everyone to have.
I have an elevator pitch, if I can find it. Sorry.
Oh, come on! You can't read it. You got to have it off the top of your head, right?
Well, I can. I just don't. I really liked the one that I wrote the other day.
Okay.
There you go. A Bronze Age inspired cosmic fantasy romp, bringing together action and pathos as the ancient elemental known as Death leaps from his ethereal retirement to help a young soul protect her loved ones, her world, and even existence itself. Move on. Metaphysical and interrelational themes are touched upon whilst an energetic chase and confrontation takes centre stage. The story firmly plants itself in the all-ages readership audience, with ex-Marvel editor Tim Quinn guiding the art and story duties of Doctor Who and Marvel artist Russ Leach in a tale that is in many ways a love letter to the way comics used to be.
That's good. It's a little more of a log line. I think it's a long elevator ride. But
the first line, that's the elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch. But
yeah.
I mean, then that's what I would, once we get to, that's going to be way down the road in my series when you coming up with an elevator pitch. But yeah, definitely have that concise thing, but then expand on it, because the whole idea of the elevator pitch is if you can get somebody interested, you've got to know where to go from there. Well,
that
the elevator pitch, and then you can go on further. But yeah, that's great.
That was my that's actually a publisher pitch. So what I'm doing is I'm sending off to a couple of select publishers. Mm-hmm. I'm not spamming it. It's just a couple of people that I think might be right for it. But the book's going to get made no matter what. I'm only kind of like probing the possibilities of somebody I like possibly publishing it. But if they don't want it, then I'm self-publishing it. I'm going the crowdfunding route. So at the moment, it doesn't matter whether I go for a self-publish or whether I go for somebody else publishing it. I still have to build up an audience. I still have to create a buzz around it. So I have my Only Death Can Save Us teaser site, and I have the video, the YouTube channel, and I'll slowly be putting up bits of the creative process, putting up character profiles, that kind of thing. I'll be doing that while I'm not sleeping.
And you said have to, and this has been kind of a recent change, I think, in the last 3 to 5 years. But do you feel like that is somewhat of a tacit requirement now from publishers, is to kind of bring an audience?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily to bring an audience, although there are publishers that seem to think that just because you have a large audience that will convert into a readership. I don't believe that that's the case, because audiences on the internet aren't the same as the people that will buy your books. But there is a crossover. So I think it's important that you have, if not a business plan, at least a PR plan, so that you're marketing your intellectual property, you're marketing your ideas and yourself as a creator. And certainly that's something that's exploded over the last couple of years. I think it's the new way of doing things. People will buy books from you because they like the cut of your jib. They like the way that you roll. They like your even if you're not you don't have to be shouting and screaming or being part of a pop culture war. You can just be there, like being yourself, saying, well, this is what I do, this is what I enjoy, this is what I'd like to be doing. And you don't have to take it any further than that. I certainly don't want to row online with people. That's not what I'm there for. I'm here as a creator. I've got some ideas, and I'm hopefully going to touch people with those ideas. Come along for the ride. And if you can build that kind of, if you can build that audience, then you're definitely going to convert some of those people into people who will buy your book, because they're buying into you. And the great thing I like about crowdfunding, if I do go that route, is that people do feel that they're part of the production of your book. And so it gives them a link to your work that they don't necessarily get from buying off the shelf in a comic book shop. So, but I think there's room for both, totally.
Yeah, I've got a question as far as sort of, I don't know. I mean, probably not even talking about like trademarking the character or whatever. But you're working with a character who's sort of in some ways a public domain character or a character from mythology or whatever, but it's not, you've got your own spin on it. Your version of that character has its own look. It's very unique to how I mean, how do you sort of, I don't know, how do you make that your own as far as, you know, your own intellectual property? Now, obviously the visual aspects, it's copyright to you because you created the look of the character and everything. But obviously the title of, which I love the title of the book, but if it can't just be Death, because there's other versions of Death. There's like the Neil Gaiman Death and all this, you know. So with something that's sort of basic and sort of a generic term, beyond the, I don't know, how do you kind of separate that, I guess?
I think it's because of the way that you portray it in, you know, your portrayal of that particular character, and the setting and the story and the design, that's yours. And as soon as you commit that to paper, to digital work, and it's out there, it becomes yours. And you know, it's difficult to fight. I know that you can go trademarks and copyrights and stuff like that, but I think there's some basic copyright laws that work pretty much globally.
Is automatically yours once you create it.
And Death is his name is only Death. Is a little insight into the story. His name is only Death because we call him Death.
Right. Okay.
His original name is Death, which is Deff. And when, without giving too much away the story, when he connects with this young soul, Chrissy, she ends up calling him D.
Okay.
So it's D and Chrissy, basically. They're the combination.
I like it. Yeah. So I mean, obviously you could compare that to Universal Frankenstein or something, whereas Frankenstein is in the public domain, but Universal's version, or like any Disney character, because every single Disney character is based on a fairy tale or existing public domain idea. But once you start adding their own spin to it and creating all the other characters that didn't exist in the fairy tales, like the sidekicks and all that stuff, I mean, that makes that version uniquely their own. So I mean, whereas Rapunzel, you know, or like, well, I guess like the Frozen, they gave them, sometimes they'll give them their own names. Like Belle wasn't the name in the actual Beauty and the Beast; it was just Beauty. But
well, then Belle becomes their property.
Right. Exactly.
Totally.
So I guess that's what I was going with, was like, how do you, like with Disney, they call her Belle, so that make Belle is copyright Disney. Whereas with Death, but I like the idea of they kind of calling him D and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I was just kind of,
he's got a nickname, but he's also got his original name as part of the Warriors of Light, which are effectively the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, the 4 Horsemen. But and you'll see this in the preview. They're conquest, death, war, and famine. And they're spelt differently. These are actually misinterpretations by ancient civilizations of their names, and misinterpretations of exactly who they are and what they did billions of years ago. And it's come down through lore, through cosmic civilizations and all kinds of. And it's only hinted at. That's something for another book. The book itself is about. It's about a big bun fight, basically, between the good guy and the bad guy, and it sets up the relationship between the 2 core characters. So
I mean, I'm like super excited, and like, again, the visual look of the character, and it's just, I mean, it's really cool, and it's really smart in a way, because you're taking something that people are familiar with, a concept, Death, Grim Reaper, or whatever you want to call it, and you're giving it its own spin. So people are already kind of, it's almost like, if you take something from like if you were to do like some kind of a Lovecraftian thing, because that's all in the public domain, but you put your own spin on it. So you're getting that benefit that people get from working on like a well-known character, like, or doing fan art, but
there's recognition there. So I actually came up. I mean, I'll be honest. Part of the idea was involved with that. I wanted to make something that was recognizable, that could catch the attention. It wasn't the first book that I wrote. I've written another book, Emissary, and that book is an homage to a book that Stan Lee and John Buscema did back in the 90s. I think it was a Silver Surfer book. I've got it up on the bookcase, but I can't see it at the moment. I can't remember its title, but it had Mephisto in it, and every page was a single panel. And that's how I wrote the book. So it's a 60-page one shot, and each page is a single panel. And that's kind of like the concept behind that is very esoteric. It's like it's got its basics in quantum physics and the idea that we live in some kind of matrix-like environment, and how souls work within that, and how it's all about messages and growth and that kind of thing. And this guy, the emissary, is dispatched to give us a message, and it's his journey and what happens when he gets here. And it kind of pokes fun at the human race as well a bit. And I thought I really wanted to write that book because, again, as we were talking about earlier, it's about messages. It's about connecting with people, and I thought it was a great message. And I'd been listening in the last 10 years. I've been listening to a whole bunch of rubbish on YouTube, and some of it's pseudoscience and awful, and some of it's quite deep and meaningful. And most of it's kind of went in and swirled around in my head, and I needed to make that book. And some of those elements have gone into Only Death Can Save Us, but they're only loosely touched on. And I felt that I couldn't just come straight out with my first book being that one panel per page. I needed to do something more exciting, more engaging. I really felt like it was an engaging story and it worked, but not everybody's going to be into that kind of approach. So I wanted to do something more standard, more comic strippy, and also to show off, hopefully, my abilities for telling stories and all the rest of it, which you can't quite do with a single panel per page. So I went from there. That was kind of like the inception of Only Death Can Save Us, because I wanted to do something in a similar vein, thinking about the whole quantum physics and esoterics and all the rest of it. And that's where it drove me towards Dee and Chrissy. And I also wanted to get the feels in there, if you see what I mean. I wanted to have a redemption story of sorts. I wanted a hero's journey, and Dee is a very powerful being, but there are more powerful beings, and that's part of his journey through the book, and hopefully out the other end into other one shots of Only Death Can Save Us.
Cool. Now when you say one shot, is it like a standard issue comic one shot, or is it
it's 58 pages of story. So the idea is that it's like a small graphic novel,
so not
a large
graphic novel, or cool.
I really enjoyed those. I used to buy a lot of those back in the 90s. There were lots of one shots back then. A lot of them had the perfect bound spine, and they were just a really good read. They were obviously more expensive than your average floppy, but they felt substantial and they looked really good on my bookshelf. And a very vain, it's vanity from my own perspective, but I'd really like at some point, if I could bring out multiple one shots, I'd really like to do a hardback black and white trade, so that you maybe have 4 one shots or 5 one shots in a nice big book with a hardback cover on it. I'd really love to do that, and do it just in black and white. So just leave the black and white inks with the lettering over the top and take
I'm
the colors
sucker
out.
for black and white comics. So,
yeah, me too. I'm still sort of like this. Should I do it color? Should I do it black and white?
But I think
color is the right way to go.
I think so too. But I would like that option too. But yeah, I think your stuff will, especially if you're going. I mean, because you're going for a sort of a Bronze Age kind of style, and it looked like, from what I saw, it looked kind of like flat colors and everything. Is that correct?
Yeah, flats with just little blobs of shade and what have you. So I really thought about it, and there are some great colorists out there. I got somebody else to do my flats for me, so that that was laid in, and all I had to do was fiddle basically. But I've worked with some great colorists, and I thought about, well, should I just go the whole hog and make it look? And I thought, no, keep it pure to the idea that I had in the first place. And,
I think it looks great. As much as I love black and white, as much as I love that kind of the modern color, like painted and like when it's done really well, it's still, I think it looks great with more or less kind of that flat color look and everything. It definitely looks like, from the screenshots I've seen, I mean, it looks like it could have been a Bronze Age comic. So
thank you. That's exactly the idea. I wanted to. It's not just
if you can get it on newsprint, or even depending on whatever route you go. But like I picked up this. It was a Tank Girl special, and it wasn't newsprint, but it looked like newsprint, but it was a little thicker stock, and it was a premium stock, but it had that look of newsprint. It was kind of that just natural like paper. So whether it's newsprint or whatever, but even I am the glossy paper is just a big turnoff for me, especially
I'm not keen.
Especially when you're trying to film it, anytime I try to film, I'm doing like my B-roll and everything for the Making Comics 101, and because I'm standoffish about actually taking like video clips or like actual just shots of artwork, I'm basically opening up books that I've purchased and just kind of running the camera over them, and so many of them are printed on that glossy paper that it just, once that light hits it, it's just like, oh man, get that light out of the way. It's just that reflection. I just don't I don't like that glossy paper at all.
No, it's a pain. I've had two graphic novels printed. One was Terminus at Fenton's Green, which was on glossy. Actually, that had a hardback version of it as well, which was really nicely printed. And then Marcosia changed their printer, and they did Indifference Engine 2, which I did the artwork on. And that actually had like a newsprint inside. So they downgraded as far as, the gloss is concerned. I didn't think it was a downgrade. But I really liked the way that book came out, the almost newsprint feel to the inner pages. I think it makes a difference, and I think it'll, if I do go that route, it'll make a difference to the way the book looks. I actually I've been looking at different printers, and I found one the other day that does newsprint comics, so that might be something that I consider. So but yeah, I've been looking, like I was saying, it's not just a nostalgia kick, it's the way that those books looked.
Right.
I think there's a clarity about them that sometimes is missed nowadays. I love all comics, all different types of comics, and I'm very appreciative of a lot of the artwork that goes into the big two at the moment. That some of it's not so hot, let's be honest, but there are some individuals that are just stunning, and I don't think I could ever go anywhere near those guys, but what I'm hoping to achieve is a clarity of storytelling and a clarity of image, without getting too anal about it. And I think that's what Bronze Age did so well. I tried doing other styles. My journey, as it were. I tried doing different ways of producing work, and it always came back to that look. So that's what I decided to refine. And I'm getting to a point now where it's getting close to what I want. It's never going to be perfect. You know what it's like. It's never going to be right, but it's getting much closer.
Most people that look at it, they probably think it's pretty perfect, but that's the thing. We're our own worst critics, so.
Oh yeah.
So, anything you want to add before I've got another part of the topic, but what
No, I think we're done for that. Just if you're interested in the story, it will open up on the teaser site as I move forward, and obviously I will be putting up the 9-page preview. The first 8 pages and the cover will be free to download, I would imagine, by the end of the month.
Oh, okay. So that's where I was confused, because it sounded like you had something coming out like towards the end of the month. So we will be able to see something, because okay, because then you had mentioned that I guess the book will probably be finished. And
the book's going to be the third quarter probably, unless a publisher steps in that I like. Then I would imagine from publisher's perspective, they'll probably won't want to put it out till 2021. But if a publisher doesn't, if the right publisher doesn't approach me, or vice versa, then I will be crowdfunding it at the second half of this year.
Okay, yeah, that's what I want to get into next. But before I do, is there anything you wanted to add, Corey, or anything? Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, I could ask all kinds of questions about kind of the impetus of the idea, the mythology, the backstory, and everything. But I don't want to derail everything, because I'm super curious about all that, because it's fascinating, and that's the fertile ground that good stories are told in. I feel like you've got all of that myth and lore, but you're not shoving it down people's throat. But you can kind of release it, throughout the story. So it sounds awesome.
My concept, thank you. My concept, the part of the potential concept, is that I've written the first book. I'd quite like to see other writers write the next books. And at the end of the first book, it's open to the point that, and in fact, the final characterization of Death, or Dee and Chrissy, is that they can go anywhere and any time. So moving forward, you could put them in a Captain America book. You could put them in The Matrix. You could put them in Scooby-Doo. It doesn't matter. They could go anywhere.
Interesting.
So there's that aspect to them, and there's also the fact that I'd quite like to see if other writers could take the story in a slightly different direction after I give them, the basis of the lore and where I think it sort of roughly is, and then see what they do with it.
Yeah, it's a very kind of BPRD Magnola thing to do.
Yeah. That's it. Minola is definitely an inspiration there. I mean, the Hellboy books, the way that he packaged them up into like mini series, and then they moved on. That's hopefully what I'm going to be able to do with each one shot. So each one, so maybe 2 1-shots might comprise a sort of a mini story, or you could just have one at a time. It'd be really nice if I could do 2 a year, but let's see.
Yeah. And then one quick question, and then I'll let Scott move on here. But did you read 2000 AD much growing up?
Yeah. Big fan. Yeah. I started off my first book I ever got was Stalker by DC, and my mum got me that, and I remember drawing it. I think I've still got the drawing somewhere. I was only 5 or 6, I think. And then my first proper purchase of my own was Captain Britain when it came out weekly. And then I moved up from there to buying Spider-Man and stuff like that. But the core of that Captain Britain book, it ran Fantastic Four with John Buscema and Joe Sinnott on inks, and it had Steranko on Nick Fury in the back, and then all the artists that went with the first series of Captain Britain. That pretty much shaped my early ideas about what comics should look like. So there was a high watermark in that book, and then I quickly went on to a book called Star-Lord, which merged with 2000 AD, and then I was a big 2000 AD fan.
Yeah. Okay. Because there seems to be a lot of influence in the way you're thinking about doing that, and the way that 2000 AD crafted, and a lot of the British guys that I know. I mean, 2000 AD was just like, it was huge. So.
Oh yeah, it was very, very, very influential.
Yeah. So I was just saying, I completely missed it over here, but catching up on it is fascinating. I mean, it's just brilliant.
Again, I would say the old stuff is. I'd prefer the old stuff. How much of that is nostalgia, I don't know. But I have again lots of reprints of Judge Dredd. Judge Death is by Brian Bolland is quite possibly one of the finest pieces of work ever done. I just love that. It's just an amazing story to have come out with at the time. And Brian Bolland's work is just superb. Yeah. His work is another level. It just really is. I'd put him up there with people like John Buscema because he's fantastic. His energy, his weight of line, his work ethic, everything about him was just fantastic.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of like 2000 AD, but I did get one. There was one copy. I think it was. I don't know if it's always the same publisher, but I know I think it was Eagle Comics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it was 2000 AD. It was Judge Death and I think Judge Anderson. No Judge Dredd, but I remember looking at that. And it just seemed so. There was just a lot of differences. I remember for some reason I remember the lettering. The lettering was a lot smaller, and I don't know if that's just. I don't know if that was just maybe if you guys had a different format over there.
That may be because it was shrunk down to a format because it's actually an oversized A4. Yeah,
because this was
it's quite a big format.
Size comic. So that kind of I was like, oh, this looks different, But after that, I couldn't really find too many after that. So
I did manage to draw. Judge Anderson for Future Quake. Over here, there's a couple of fanzines. They're called fanzines, but they're incredibly professional, and they're put out online, and you can go and buy them. They're printed, but lovely covers, and a lot of 2000 AD artists actually draw the covers for the books. So there's kind of an official air about them, and I got to draw Judge Anderson for a Future Quake episode, so I did get a little bit of that, but I haven't been able to break into 2000 AD either.
Yeah, I mean, I could go one of two different ways. I am sort of curious if we can keep this part brief because I definitely want to get into the reasoning for or kind of what you alluded to before about either going self-publishing or whatever. But before I'm just kind of curious what the UK comic scene is like compared to, because you always hear about European comics and how there's much, but I don't know if UK falls into that the same as like a France or Spain or something where it seems like they really hold comic artists a very high regard. It's
funny that we were talking about Judge Death as a character because it's dead over here. It didn't help that that Disney withdrew all original content from Panini. So Panini were putting out several books that were original content created by Panini, passed through Marvel. And that stopped just before I got the gig on, relatively just before I got the gig on Doctor Who. If that was still going, don't want to sound too arrogant, but I might have got a crack at doing some of that. Yeah. So that would have definitely sated my thirst, being able to do that. And I know there were a few British artists that got that opportunity, but Disney knocked that on the head as soon as they bought into Marvel, or pretty close to as soon as they bought into Marvel, and said, no, you're not going to produce any other work outside of Marvel offices. And then editorially, that is, not freelancers. So you could still get British freelancers working for Marvel in America, but there'd be no new work coming through Panini. But then, of course, they started handing out things like Spider-Man to IDW, is it?
What? No, wait. How does that work?
Was it IDW that took on Spider-Man books? I think the Spider-Man and Avengers book, and I think it was IDW. Yeah, it was a little while ago. They basically farmed out some characters.
Really? Is it for like a crossover or just straight?
No, they're doing it.
That seems bizarre.
I think it was IDW. I mean,
okay.
Don't.
Well, I know they do with a lot of licensed characters, but I've never heard of Marvel giving out their core characters to other companies like that unless it's part of a crossover.
No, I heard they were doing it with the all ages. Titles.
With kids stuff.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless I've skipped a universe overnight, which does happen on occasion.
I mean, I'm not totally. I'm not too knowledgeable what's going on currently with the mainstream comics, but that just seems bizarre. But
they did that, so you can imagine that there's a few British comic strip artists that are gnashing their teeth over on this side of the Atlantic, thinking, well, why are you doing that? Why is it okay to do that, but you took it away from Panini? Yeah. And Panini, this is a personal viewpoint. Panini were doing a great job. They knew their market, and now over here it's just reprints of whatever's gone on in the US, and then there's 2000 AD, which obviously is the biggest book over here as far as sci-fi kind of stuff is concerned. That does get put out at WH Smith's and places like that. That's a big sort of stationery shop over here that does newspapers and magazines as well. But that's about it, and I think their sales aren't fantastic. You get a comic strip in Doctor Who, but Doctor Who magazine is only one magazine, and there's quite a few comic book artists ready to jump on that one. And to be honest, it's got some really good artists, like people like David Roach and Ross. I can't remember his name. Sorry, Ross. He was the artist on Doctor Who Adventures before me when it was with a different publisher. And then, of course, there's Mike Collins as well. That those people pretty much got it sewn up, because why would you go anywhere else when you've got that kind of talent pool? So it's difficult. It's very difficult in the UK. Europe just going great guns. I think they're more like Japan, where the art form is respected far more than it is in the UK.
I'm so jealous of that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, because I mentioned a project earlier that I'm working on, which is about delivery of comic strip or comic books, graphic novels to devices, and all of the content that we're working on with that is European. So because they sell so well, they've already got a great installed base. So Europe's going great guns. The UK not so good, I'm afraid. Which is why that I have to look for work. All over the place. Which is the great thing about the internet. So there's ups and downs. So
when you mentioned that they're not hiring like UK artists, it's like, why not? I mean, it's all everything's on the internet now.
I think without getting too political or opinionated, you get cliques. There's no doubt that you get cliques. There's no doubt that there's I keep forgetting this word, when you give the job to your kid.
Nepotism.
Nepotism. That's it. Nepotism. There's nepotism. There's always been nepotism and cliques. It's just the way of the business. That's not something that's new. The trouble is that the person that I am, I'm not necessarily in any of those cliques. So and that is the desperate nature of being a comic book artist. Is you can be the best artist in the world, and if you don't get that bit of luck or open that door, you might never ever be published by the big two. And that's part of that naivety that I mentioned earlier on that I went through, is that, well, make it happen for yourself. And if you're making it happen for yourself, you never know what might happen along the way. If you get noticed. I mean, in all fairness to Marvel, they've said that if you make books, we'll notice you. And so that's what you've got to do. You've got to go out there and make books. And it's really weird. I've been in and out of the industry for 10 years. I've been a professional illustrator now for 10 years, although some of my early work I wouldn't call particularly professional. And I've been, drawing comics quite a lot of that time, and yet my anonymity is obvious to me. And I've had those books out, but those books have never really. I did a 2-year run on Doctor Who, but that comic would never have ended up on the desk of anyone at Marvel.
Right. You
know, so you have to. But so even though I've made books, I haven't made books that have obviously been in the right places. Also, you know, it's down to my skill set as well. Maybe I haven't been right at any moment in time as well. It's not just about, you know, whether they're in the right place or not. It's arrogant to think, well, as soon as they've seen that book, obviously I'm going to get a job. You know, but making books, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm making books, but you don't just make the books so that you can be seen. Make the book because you want to make the book.
And in your case, I think it can serve both purposes, because it is something that I think fits into the look of like a Marvel or whatever, and it's your own idea, it's your own, you know, it's a character that could be. I mean, I could, like you said, I mean, I could go through time or whatever, I could see him hanging out with a Spider-Man or a Deadpool or whatever. I mean, that it would just fit right in there. Now, granted, you know, I don't know that. I don't think that's how Marvel works, but obviously there's other companies out there that are looking that do creator-owned projects. So, you know, that's one of the routes that you're going. Now we can get into this where, like, so you send it out to the companies that will entertain self or creator-owned stuff, and then the other idea is, you know, is to, you know, crowdfund it. What's the benefit to a publisher picking it up as opposed to just go ahead and crowdfund it right off the bat?
Notoriety, ready-made, installed base.
Right. Okay.
So as much as I've learned this one along the way as well. You still need to do your own marketing, your own PR. You still have to make a buzz with your own product. Don't expect the publisher to do that for you, no matter who the publisher is. If they do, that's great, but you have to do it yourself. But the advantage of a publisher, especially if it's the right publisher that's going to respect the work, there's only maybe a subset of publishers that we're talking about. They're going to have an installed base, and that means you get your story out to instantly potentially more people. So, you know, if I could crowdfund and get, good Lord, what's a decent expectation? 500 readers, you know, to crowdfund me, that would be a pretty good mark. 500, I think. That would be a very good mark. If you're, you know, if you get a publisher that can get out to 5,000, you've gone up by a factor of 10, haven't you? You've just instantly got yourself to more people. You've instantly given yourself the ability to have more. I hate the word fans. More people that appreciate your work and you as a creator. They go, oh, right, that's a Russ Leach book. I like that. So if later on you do go and crowdfund, instantly you've got that more notoriety. So if I go to a publisher this time with this particular IP, it doesn't mean I'm going to stay with the publisher next time I go for a new IP. Or if I want to publish my other book, you know, maybe I'll go crowdfunding because other people now know me. So that's the advantage of going with a publisher. Depending on who that publisher is, again, I think you'd have to be, I think it's only sensible to be particular about the kind of publisher you have, and we'll know about the publishers that we really want to work with, who will respect the work and what have you. But the crowdfunding side of it is that you are completely in control. So, you know, you publish when you want to. Nobody's breathing down your neck. That said, you have to obviously meet the deadlines for the self-imposed deadlines on your crowdfunder. From my personal perspective, coming from the background that I come from, the work's going to be done before I go to a crowdfund.
Yeah.
So that the work will be finished.
Yeah.
I will then go to a crowdfund and say, your risk is minimum because this work is already done. All I'm doing is looking for effectively pre-orders for you to believe in my work. Here it is. You can see it. You can see my progress on YouTube. You can go to the teaser site and see where I've got to so far. You can see that the work is done. I'm now saying, right, do you want this? I'm going to publish it. This is for printing and distribution.
Yeah,
that's the way I would handle crowdfunding personally. So.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and it's great that, I mean, it really is amazing that we have that option. Like, so if a publisher likes it enough that they want to put it out, that's great. But if not, it's not like that's you're kind of, you don't have anywhere to go from there. So
no, that's the wonderful thing about the way things are at the moment. If you have options and you have choices, but either way, you still have to do the PR. You still have to get yourself out there and get noticed.
Yep. Well, we're at about the hour and a half mark. So is there anything else that we didn't discuss that we wanted to bring up real quick before we start making the rounds? And
no, I think that's it.
I already put that one up.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Yeah, but Russ probably didn't see it. So
we'll put it up again.
Okay.
I saw
everybody should feel this way.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely am. I'm excited that.
Thank you, Robert.
Because I thought we were going to get something at the end of the month, and then I was talking to Russ, and he said it wasn't going to come out till probably the end of the year, and I said, I must have read that wrong. But there will be a preview that we can check out, so that's awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to reading that preview, and when you eventually do whatever you do, whether it's through a publisher or you crowdfund it, I will be right there because I just think it just looks awesome.
It sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
it looks great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to talk for another 3 or 4 hours, but I'll refrain. This has been fascinating. So,
all right. Well, Russ,
anytime.
Yeah, he's just getting up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get some breakfast.
We're probably gonna crash not too long from now, but we might be able to talk a little bit after the show. But anyway, so okay, let's go ahead and make the rounds then. I guess we'll start with Corey. Anything you want to promote? Anything going on?
Let me share this real quick. So if you guys want to go check out when this guy ends up on Instagram, that's going to be happening probably tonight or tomorrow. So yeah, so just go to CoreyKerr.com and you can see the Instagram link there and all that stuff. I might do a little YouTube explainer of it or whatnot, but yeah. So that's all I've got right now.
Is that a personal project or a client project?
No, I'm in the middle of a client project, but this is I'm experimenting with shape tweening in After Effects, and so this is just a way to kind of push me in animation. There's a few things I haven't done before in this one, so this is possibly it'll be kind of a stinger at the end of my videos because I've got that robot intro deal, and at the end I'm going to have this fish kind of fly by, rip its skin off, the bones are going to open up, and then the bug's going to pop out of its mouth and splat, in the splat pattern is going to be my logo. So
cool.
That's so cool.
So
I can't possibly hope to be that impressive. Good Lord.
This is why in the beginning I said Disney would never be interested in what I work on. I'm gonna have the face rip off, and they're like, "Yeah, let's put it on Disney Plus."
That's great.
Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast, and they were talking about today, and they were talking about design trends for the upcoming year. They're predicting the design trends, and one of them was definitely animation, short animations, just basically things where typically you would see illustrations being shared or whatever on Instagram, but just even a little bit of motion in there. It sounds like that's going to be one of the bigger things. So, I mean, you're definitely positioned to, if that is a trend that starts happening.
It's already happening. I called it 2 years ago, yeah. and I hoped I was right, but that is definitely something that I would recommend for anybody trying to get a little bit of traction on Instagram. Is if you can figure out how to make your stuff move a little bit. Yeah. It'll add about 30%.
I'm wondering if just a pan, even if Russ was to take one of his pages and just pan a move, a close up, just so there's a little bit of movement there.
Yeah. As long as we're doing that, I'll give some free advice on that. Yeah. I would do two things because I've been looking at this a lot lately. Let me find. Let's go here. One thing is I would look very specifically at what they're calling carousels.
Yeah, I think I might do that with some stuff for Making Comics 101. And by the way, just the tip you gave me to get the stuff from my iPad or from my computer to
did that work?
Devices worked. So
good.
It was great. So that was a very short, like it was under a minute. So I don't know if it'll work with like longer stuff, but it definitely worked for that. So
yeah. So if you want to trigger the algorithm on Instagram so that they stop throttling your stuff, you want people to engage. Engagement rate is the biggest thing that they look at. And what a lot of artists are finding, Chris Doe is kind of the pioneer of this, at least getting it popularized. But like in this, I could have done this entire tutorial in like one video at the beginning, right? But what I wanted to do is I want people to watch that, and then I want them to click. They click, all of a sudden Instagram goes, oh, they clicked, right? And then they click again, and then they click again, and then they click again. And what all you're really doing is you're just getting people to look at your stuff. So this is a very simple illustration that I did a while ago, and then I just went in and cut it up and repurposed it, for this rant. But you'll notice the seamless stuff. If you go back and forth between these things, it's super easy to do. You just have a bunch of artboards in Illustrator or whatever program you're using, and you just have all the graphics bleed edge to edge on those artboards. Then when you export them, they seem seamless. And so as you scroll, you have these deals. And so, I was looking at Russ's stuff, and what I would love to see is I'd love to see that main hero image. That's awesome. Maybe even with like a pan or a little bit of a zoom or some Ken Burns or something like that. And then let me click through to see different parts of that page, or to see the process, or to see a little quote, or something like that. And that type of thing, like even something like this, like here's this, and then, here's some color schemes that I was working with. That's not a great example because I wish I had like 6 more slides on it. But that type of thing is the type of thing that is triggering the algorithm. And obviously I don't have like huge engagement, but I have noticed I was getting a couple hundred likes before they throttled everything and went to an algorithmically driven timeline. And then after they went to that, I've been under 100, and now I'm getting back up to 100, 150 on a lot of these. And it's mainly just because I think people engage with motion on Instagram a lot more than they do otherwise.
You're getting them to stop scrolling down and actually scroll to the side, and you're in kind of control. They're in your space instead of going to somebody else. So,
and that's a carousel.
Yeah, so it's a carousel,
and you can do that from your PC rather than because I'm still a bit of a newbie as far as it goes to.
Yeah, so here's how I do it, and this is what Scott was talking about before. I will make things on Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever else on my PC, and then I just web optimize the images and email them to my phone, and then upload it from my phone.
And you can do that right in can't you? You can create a carousel right in Instagram, right? Does it give you the option, or do you have to do it somewhere else?
Only on mobile though.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're maybe we could do a little after party. I could. Yeah,
I've got a question about. I mean, I'm so behind on Instagram. Like I noticed now, there's like categories. Like you've got the Inktober. I need to learn how to set that up and everything. So we'll talk about that after the show. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even mind if people are. I don't know if anybody's interested in this stream. I could show a little bit, but yeah. I mean, that's what I'd recommend. I think carousels and movement. Those are 2 of the biggest things that are gonna help push already good content. I mean, it all starts with you got to have quality content.
Yeah. Right.
The other thing that I've noticed that's really big. Let me see. Oh, can I not do this on? Okay, I can't do it on the desktop. I can show it on. I can stream it from my phone. But the other thing that I've noticed that's really big is you've got to get the right hashtags. And people will follow hashtags. And what you just mentioned, Scott, where people are following specific things and there's categories of things, that's starting to happen even on Twitter. So Twitter just came out last week or the week before that. And they were like, we've noticed that you follow a lot of comic book creators. Would you be interested in following the comic book topic? And then I started seeing tweets that Twitter's algorithm decided were about comic books, but not from people that I was following. And I signed up for Star Wars too, and then immediately bailed on that because that's just it's a horrible hive of villainy and vitriol.
Yeah.
But anyway, if I could find like Star Wars related content of people that don't hate everyone, that
would be cool. Nice.
Yeah, I'd like to have that conversation. But anyway, yeah. So if you can get 2 or 3 hashtags that are just yours that nobody else uses, or very few people use, 2 or 3 hashtags that are going to get you into the like under 100,000 range, and then 2 or 3 that are trending and super popular. That's kind of minimum. I'd go for. They used to say max it out at 30. Those are getting punished a little bit now more than they used to. But if you get in there, you don't want to have too many hashtags that go beyond like 1 million uses or whatever, because that's when you start getting you trigger the bots that'll come and do the follow and follow crap. But if you get into these little niche hashtags, I'm getting about anywhere from 20 to 35% of people finding my work that are not currently following me just through that. Also, the community tab on YouTube. I don't know. I haven't looked at your YouTube channel, but
it's woeful. I'm only on 360 at the moment. I don't think you get a community till 1,000, do you?
I'm not sure. I'm at 2,800 now, so I don't have nearly what Scott does, but I've got the community tab. But you can. I've been starting to share Instagram stuff on YouTube through the community tab, which has helped a little bit. It's not super, but I know some people has seen it. Keeman, I'm using After Effects, so I'm using my iPad Pro to draw most of that. And that's Sketchbook. I use Autodesk Sketchbook, which is a free illustration program. I prefer over Procreate. And then I'm using exporting that as a PSD, and then animating the PSD with After Effects is usually what's going on. And then I supplement a lot of it with Illustrator vector files. So anyway, that was a big long rant that no one asked for. But
that was great.
I want to talk a little bit after the show.
That's great, because I've learned something new. I'll definitely be trying to do that. Or adding it into the other things that my brain can't cope with.
If you set up templates, though, it makes it go much faster.
Okay.
That's what I'm gonna do. All right, Russ, what about you? Anything? What do you want to promote? What do you want to let people know about?
YouTube channel, really. Trying to gain more presence on YouTube. So Comic Book Black Belt. But you can pick me up on Instagram, over at Facebook and Twitter. My website, russleach.com or comicbookblackbelt.com, and of course the book onlydeathcansaveus.com, and all these places have links to my email subscription list, which is as important as the YouTube channel, so I can get information out to people. Sign up.
Real quick. So with this preview, you said you're giving that out for free.
That will be that will be available on the preview site, Only Death Can Save Us.
Okay.
So that will probably be my first subscription email out to the subscribers. So
yeah, if there's something you can attach to the newsletter to get people to opt in, whether it's like a free comic or something like that, it can help build that mailing list. I know that definitely works for me with the Comic Maker Starter Kit and everything. So it's kind of hard to get people to join mailing lists if there's not something in it for them. Unless they're huge fans, and there's a few of those out there, but
a few.
Yeah. All right, and definitely check out, like Russ said, check out his YouTube channel. There's a link to that in the description of this video. Great content, great art, everything. So definitely check that out. As far as me, you're on my channel, but you can also find me at circworks.com, and just be on the lookout. If you aren't already subscribed to my channel, and maybe even hit that bell, because I'll be putting out a lot of content around this 100 days of make. I keep saying one. I keep switching those up. Like 101, 100. So yeah. So the Making Comics 101 premieres Monday. Tomorrow I will have a quick tip out, and so basically it may be, there's some weeks you can have 4 videos from me, because I'm thinking I want to put out the proper episode of Making Comics 101 on the Monday. On Wednesday, I'd like to put out kind of an exercise or a little deep dive, and then maybe like a quick tip on a Friday or something. And then on the days where Artcasters falls on my channel, that's Thursday. So, so there'll be some content on my channel. So if you want to be alerted to when that's coming out, you can also ring that bell. I also have a Patreon if you want to get this stuff before anyone else. I don't know if Frank Salazar from Salazar Art Nation is still in the chat, but and anyone else who's my patron, you've probably already seen the first episode because I released it a couple days ago. So you can definitely get a jump on that, and you can get some advanced stuff, as well as there's tons of other stuff. I mean, there's plenty of exclusive videos. I get stuff out already, and Frank is really good at helping promote me. So I really appreciate that. All right. So, and the other thing I forgot, we were talking about newsletters earlier. We also have a newsletter for the Artcasters, and we don't spam you or anything like that. All we do is about 30 minutes ahead of time before the show starts, we send out that newsletter with a link to where you can find us, because it's a little confusing. It rotates from my channel to Josh's channel, usually on a Thursday, but that can change. And if you want to know exactly when that's going to be, just sign up for the Artcasters mailing list. And with that, I just want to thank Russ for coming on and waking up super early over there in the UK. And I also want to thank the chat. And this has been an awesome episode. And so we got a quick question. Hey, Russ, do you need a little help converting your websites into mobile ready? I can help you at no cost. Yeah, Robert does. He did the 100 Days of Making Comics website and everything. So, yeah, I need to actually. I need to start with whatever I can do myself on my website, but I may need to call Robert to help me out with a few extra things. So all right. Thank you, chat. Thanks, Russ, and we will see everyone next week, probably on Josh's channel. So see you then.
Bye.